Hey there, and welcome back to Marriage Therapy Radio. This is our third installment of So I Married a Relationship Expert, the series that I named after a movie that I hoped everyone would remember, but nobody does. It's called So I Married an Axe Murderer. It's one of my favorite things to quote. And here's your quote of the week, which is, Harriet, sweet Harriet, hard-hearted harbinger of haggis. Anyway, that's not what you came for. You came to hear us talk to Terry Real and his wife, Belinda Berman-Real. We named this series, So I Married a Relationship Expert. In this episode in particular, it's hard to discern which one is the expert. They are both brilliant. They're both thoughtful. It's really cool to hear them talk about the work that they have together, not just professionally, but personally over the last 30 years or so. I first came across Terry's work in 1999, and we get to reflect on that a little bit, but also just on the principles and practices that they use not only in their work, but in their everyday life to have a happier, healthier relationship. I really appreciated the opportunity to talk to them. I think you will too. This is a very cool conversation. Stick around. I'm an alcoholic in recovery, and before I got sober, my wife would commonly say that she felt like she had 3 children. Mm-hmm. So we've moved from she has 3 children to I have 3 wives. And that's my favorite. That's my favorite stand-up joke that I made. She
accidentally called Zach her child yesterday while we were interviewing with her. So I interviewed Zach and his wife for the podcast, similar to what we're doing. And that was really fun to hear her accidentally say my 3 kids. And I was like, ooh, we're going to pause on that one for a second.
There we go.
Yeah. And then I have 1 9-year-old boy and 2 dogs that run the world for me. So.
And then you have Ryan.
And then my husband, Ryan. That's right. We're coming up on 15 years married at the end of the month.
Wow, congrats. And congrats on your recovery, Jack.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's a big part of my story that I'm really grateful for. That's what I mostly am, is grateful. I don't mean to, I always say this, never to make anybody else feel badly, but I don't really identify with congratulations. Like congratulations doesn't resonate for me very much, because what I mostly am is grateful. Like, I don't feel like I've accomplished anything. I just feel glad and free, which is, I suppose there's some congratulations in that, but mostly I just feel like I'm really just thankful to be in this space. So
I treat sex addicts.
Yeah.
And that's what they say also.
Yeah.
Grateful.
That just so grateful that they no longer have to be guided by their penis.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that. I mean, the part of Terry's work that I really resonate with is this idea of the wise adult, because when I talk about my sobriety, I mostly talk about growing up. I don't really even talk about not drinking. I talk about leveling up from very, very, I don't know what the right, strong commitment to being immature in unconscious ways to like an actual step process of growing up and like kind of owning that you got to be an adult if you're gonna make a difference in the world. So leaning into RLT work over the last few years has been actually timed pretty consistently with my sobriety journey. In fact, I think I told you, you've heard me say this before. The last time I studied with Terry in October of 2019 was the last level 2 that you did live, and then of course COVID happened. And I got sober about a year later. So finishing level 2, getting sober in fall of 2020, and then kind of leaning pretty quickly thereafter into the rest of my certification process. They've been those things have been in parallel for me, which has been really, really kind of fun to kind of almost like accelerate the process, like kind of add whatever. But enough about me. Here's what I want to do. I really, really want to listen to you guys, because there's a few things that I've heard both of you say over the years that I'm intrigued to hear you talk more about. So, Laura, is that cool if I just jump right in?
Please, yes.
The first one is this. I've heard you speak several times, Terry, live or just on the videos, and I can't count the number of times that you say, I'm married to this badass woman named Belinda. She's amazing. She is, and I want you to tell us about that, because it's pretty rare that people just sort of flat out say, my partner is incredible. So talk to me about your incredible wife.
Oh my
What
God.
a way to start the day, right? Go on.
That's your opening. I can't wait to hear you go from here. Belinda, I'll tell you. First of all, Bessel van der Kolk is always on my ass to have research. And thankfully, we are moving towards some outcome studies for RLP to prove that it works. But I'm fond of saying every single relationship skill I teach has been clinically attested. And you're looking at the clinic right there.
That's awesome.
Linda, this is true. I grew up in New Jersey. I drove an automatic, but I didn't know how to drive a stick, for those old enough to remember what that is. And a friend of mine said he'd teach me to drive a stick. Great, we met, and he drove me to Manhattan and pulled over and said, okay, here. And I said, what are we doing here? And he said, do it here. You can do it anywhere.
Do it anywhere.
And that's how I feel about my marriage. If it works between the two of us, then the odds are it'll work for you. Every skill I've learned has literally been, I'm very grounded. RLT is rooted in what works in the office, and the relational skills I teach are by and large rooted in what works between us. And our relationship is demanding and taxing and fabulous. Belinda knows this. I tease and say I'm going to write a memoir of my marriage. I don't have the book yet, but we have
the title.
The title is A Fight Worth Having. Zach, for my work, I'm not big on relationships are cozy, unbroken harmony. That's bullshit. Harmony, disharmony, and repair, closeness, disruption, and a return to closeness over and over and over again. And all the skills come in when you move from harmony into disharmony. But that's also when it's hardest to hold on to your mature self. We'll talk more about that. So this has been a rich, healing, tumultuous relationship. Belinda and I are a hot couple.
Meaning that we both come from families to survive. We're fighters.
Yeah, we both have adaptation children that are fighters. I talk about fight, flight, or fix as your knee-jerk adaptive response. We both come from violent homes, emotionally and physically violent. And when we move out of our thoughtful, wise adult prefrontal cortex, our knee-jerk response is to fight. We're screw you, screw me, screw you.
And we can look as bad as a couple that's just starting therapy. I mean, even though we have skills, we can get into that place.
Yeah. That's the disharmony you're talking about.
Yeah, we're fighting for our lives. That's what it felt like growing up. And I think that's what it felt like initially in our marriage.
Well, initially in our marriage, it was, oh my God, I can't believe I found this person. And it was heal. And then the cracks started showing.
Well, and the kids happened.
Oh, kids. I mean, kids will eviscerate your relationship.
Yeah.
Who says that? Well, so then it got rocky, and we got a couples therapy help that didn't do a damn bit of good. And we had to really pull out of some very tough places.
But we did. And that's, I think, where you got the clarification of your theory, that you got more specific. You saw the details. You also saw us catapult from that stuck place of fighting or fleeing to a place of having skills that if we touched that place again, it wouldn't happen the way it happened before.
Yeah, it's true. We each did a ton of work individually and spiritually. We spent some time apart about 15, 16 years ago and came back together again. Our kids weren't clear that we were going to. We weren't clear we were going to. Came back on a new footing. And I think that I talk to people about becoming partners in recovery. And I mean, relational recovery, not addiction, recovering that state of connection we're born for. And I think Belinda and I are partners in recovery. When we're in our adaptive children, it's tough. But we recover. And, I got this idea of harmony, disharmony, repair from an infant observational researcher, a pioneer, Ed Tronick, who looked at mothers and everybody's going, oh, attunement, parents should be perfectly attuned. Just like people say, partners need to be perfectly attuned. Yeah, bullshit. Tronick says trust in an infant doesn't come from perfect harmony. Trust comes from surviving harmony, disharmony, and repair over, peekaboo. I'm here, I'm gone, I'm here again. And same thing with relationships. And we've been forged. We're like steel that's been forged in a fire. And we trust our capacities to recover.
Well, we're trusting our capacity to regulate ourselves. And so if we get into that adapted part of ourselves, we know we're not in our best self. We know we're in that protected part of ourselves that has no belief that anybody is out there to take care of us. So we are fighting for our breath and to decide that we no longer needed to do that. We no longer needed to change the other person to feel safe. That we found a way to self-regulate ourselves because we wanted what being together gave us. It was a treasure. And before the treasure was, I'll fight to death. We thought that was the miracle that we would never, ever let ourselves be taken down by anybody again.
Wow.
So what is it now? What's the treasure now?
Us.
And the love that we feel, it's a constant. It's not just when you have great sex or take a vacation or the kids finally go off to school. It's that we love each other and we can feel it. And the love is so soothing that you don't want to give it up. What you get from fighting is not soothing. It is just protection. And if it's and you're still living a lot of your life in that adaptation, then you don't get to feel the love. People can really say when they're in a fight, they have no love for their partner or love for their kids because they're so protected by that adaptive part. It's really, when you realize you're in that a lot of the time, you just start shaking your head and saying, oh my God, I get disconnected or I get into this place. It's not about survival.
But it feels like it. It's what I call looking at your partners through the wrong end of a telescope. Suddenly they're like, a million miles away. And I say this to my clients, and it's 100% true. First of all, 30 years ago, Belinda and I could rage at each other for days at a time. Go to sleep, yell and scream at each other till 3 a.m, go to sleep exhausted, get up at 7, go to work, tell other people how to live their lives all day, and then come home and start fighting again. And this could go on. Nowadays, not always, but 99% of the time, if we start to get into it, one or the other of us will take a break. I'm a big fan of breaks. We both know. Someone calls a timeout.
We have to do it.
Leave them the hell alone. Whatever the 15, 20 minutes, and then one or the other will come back, and it's not. We'll take turn. It doesn't. It's not one person who comes back. One or the other will come back, and it sort of sounds like this. I don't want to fight.
You want to fight?
You want to fight? Or Belinda will say, "We really were a jerk about blah blah blah," and I go, "Oh, you're right." I'm sorry. And she said, "Well, what do you need?" And I go, "Well, you could really apologize for blah blah blah." And she go, "Yeah, but I'm really sorry about blah." Notice, by the way, she gives me one blah. 2 blahs are still on the table. 10 years ago, I would have fought for those other 2 blahs. Nowadays,
sure,
good enough. And what I tell my clients, which is true, what I'm literally thinking is this: how do I want to spend my evening? That's what I'm thinking. I call that keeping your head in the game. Do I want to spend proving that I'm right and arguing with this person? Or do I want to cuddle on the couch and watch something good on TV and have a cozy? It's like, you can be right or you can be married. What's more important? Is proving my point so important that I'm willing to ruin this night over it? And sometimes it is, but
rarely now.
Very, very rarely.
I always, I have a similar thing that I say to couples. I'm like, when you're fighting, I guarantee you want the same thing. There's something you both want. They're like, what do you mean? And I was like, you both want to go to bed feeling more connected and less sad.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, we want that. I go, okay, well let's back that up. How's that gonna, And it's the same stuff. Like, do we really want to do this right now? So I love that. Belinda, I want to ask you about something that you said. Sorry.
Moving out. Let me just say, Zach, that's moving out of the you versus me, which is the hallmark of the subcortical trauma-driven automatic response of protecting myself and surviving. And it's remembering the us. I call it remembering love. Remembering the person you're talking to is the person you love. And if you can't get there, remember you have to live with the son of a gun. It's in your interest to make peace with them. They're not the enemy. And that, as you know, that shift out of that cheesy enemy, I've got to either fight, flee, or fix, into, wait a minute, oh, I remember who she is. I remember why I'm talking. I call that relational mindfulness. And that's the very first skill, moving out of those immature automatic responses into something that's thoughtful, something that can choose, something that remembers, oh, yeah, wait, this person isn't a slasher. It's Belinda. I remember her. And we can cultivate the capacity to make that transition.
Hey, gang. I hope you're enjoying this conversation. I wanted to take a quick minute to invite you to the first ever Relational Life Therapy Conference that'll be taking place this April 2025 in Orlando, Florida. The conference is primarily for clinicians. It's an opportunity to connect with like-minded peers, to deepen your skills, grow your network, and really just sort of hang out with the leaders and thinkers who have been shaping RLT over the last few years. Terry will be there, and so will Belinda. Carol Gilligan will be there. The entire RLT faculty will be there, some of my heroes. I will be there with Rebecca. We're going to spend at least one day in the parks, but I'll also be leading a breakout session, so a little bit of a shameless plug for myself. Overall, it's going to be a good time to come and reconnect with yourself, reconnect with others, learn more about how the theories and practices of RLT impact your client work. It's a great time just to be with other people. We won't be doing this over the internet or over screens. The theme of this year's conference is Living Love, Transforming Ourselves and Our World. It's an opportunity to embrace intimacy, not just as a tool in our work, but as a way of living in true connection with ourselves and others. The conference is a multi-day, live, in-person event with Terry and the faculty and others to help us rebuild and nurture connection in a world that right now feels like anything but compassionate. So I would love to see you there. I hope that you will take a minute to check it out. It's April 25th to 27th in Orlando, Florida. I have it on good authority that there are plenty of conference tickets remaining, but room in the hotel where the conference is taking place is running out. So now is the time to get your ticket and book a room in the conference center where we're all going to be, so that we can bump into each other in the halls and hang out with each other in the restaurants and maybe even take a dip in the hot tub or something. I'm a big fan of the hot tub, but mostly so it's an opportunity for you to get close and personal with Terry and the faculty, get some renewal for you and for your practice, and also just be a part of the first ever RLT conference, April 25th to 27th in Orlando, Florida. You can find out more by going to relationallife.com and clicking on the information for the first ever RLT practitioner conference. If you can't find it, shoot me an email, info@marriagetherapyradio.com. I'll be happy to send you a link or make sure that you have that information. And now, back to our conversation with Terry and Belinda.
Zach, do you mind if I hop in? Because I have a question
Please.
about the transformation that the two of you made, where you were a hot couple, you burned hot, and then you started to work on yourself and work on your response. Was this something, and when you're working with your couples, what I'm wondering is, we are couples therapists, and I'm thinking of this as being very individual work of working on your own trauma responses. Is this something that has to be done in the context of couples therapy, or is this something that you have couples come in and they do individual work with you so that they can start working on themselves? I'm just curious about how does that work?
Can I answer this?
Yeah, go.
You can do the trauma work with an individual if the context can hold the emotion that comes up. So the couple has to be ready to not use what they hear from the other person as ammunition in the next fight.
Mm-hmm.
And as a therapist, you have to assess that, if that's possible, because you know the capacity of the person to manage the whoosh.
Yes.
And a lot of times people come for therapy and they're not there because that whoosh still exists.
Right.
And they have to find a way of knowing how to manage it internally. That's internal boundary. And for myself, initially, I needed individual therapy. I needed all the airtime for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a horrible trauma history, still do, but it doesn't own me. Mm-hmm. And that's what we want to see each person be able to do, that they know they have this history, they're respectful of it, but it doesn't own them anymore.
Yeah.
They are able to work with those really shattered parts internally and find a way to soothe them.
Yeah.
And to soothe them, being able to say, I love this man that I'm with. I don't want what you can do, the adapted part of me, to stand up to this, because the adaptive part of me is ugly. Mm-hmm. And it's part of me that no one would want to be in relationship to.
Yeah.
Not even myself. So I had to learn to be so allergic to how I behaved in my adaptation, and that the willingness to work through all those issues was 100%. I no longer was making it Terry's fault. I was so unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
But we have our sentence recorded now, right? I mean, listen. There are ways to peel off from the couples work and do deep trauma work. I like to spin people off to intensive experiences of a week at a time in various places in groups. That's what we learned to do with our mentor, Pia Melody. Belinda did 11 of those weeks with Pia,
Wow.
11 of them.
Wow.
So I like that. In terms of long-term individual, my preference is to do the trauma work in the couple's therapy. So long as the other partner won't use it against them, as Belinda said. But even then, if I think the other partner might do that, I'll work with that vicious partner and get them to be less vicious and then do the trauma work. But I think it's a sign of the individualistic culture that we're in, that almost all trauma work is one-on-one behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And you live with your partner's trauma. And more important, you live with the way they've adapted to that trauma.
Yep.
And over and over again, when so for example, Belinda's a fighter. I live with her fighting. We're sitting, it just never happened to us, but we're sitting in a couples therapy and the therapist brings her back to her childhood where she damn well better have fought or she would be dead, literally dead. And it opens my heart. I live with that fighter. I'm on the receiving end of that fighter all day long. I hate that fighter. And now when I see it in context, the little girl who was trying to survive, it just breeds so much empathy and intimacy between us. So I think it is infinitely preferable to do trauma work in the context of the relationship you're in, if you can get away with it. And I think it's a hallmark of our anti-relational bias as a field in psychotherapy that that's not how it's done.
And you find out the reason why it's not done is our therapists aren't comfortable sitting with couples.
Yes.
They don't know how to create boundaries. They don't know where the leverage is. And then they get consumed with feeling as if they're not doing it adequately. So they don't want it. They rather sit with the individual where they feel more expert in how to access the trauma alone.
Yeah. I was just talking to John and Julie, and they were talking to me about this software that they developed where they can have a couple on screen, and the software is able to take a look at their facial expressions, SPAF coding, and be able to determine the emotions that they're going through and also detect their heart rate. Not only is it doing it for the couple, but it's also doing it for the therapist. Imagine the information that we can gather when we have a couple who both drop into their adaptive children at the same time. Now, all of a sudden, you have a therapist that's working really hard to contain boundaries. And we have the information to be able to understand what's going on for the therapist as well. It just is mind-boggling to me, the technology that we have at our fingertips to be able to understand the dynamic that's happening in the room. Because I completely agree. It's difficult for a therapist to sit with a couple when they're both experiencing trauma in the room. And then what does that do for the therapist?
Well, particularly if you have your own trauma, like that you're bringing to the table, you know. I wasn't intending to ask this question, but how do you manage that? And you both have these really traumatic histories, and you're sitting in the office then with couples who also have their own. Like, have you formed language about how the two of you manage your own stuff in those settings?
Well, we do.
Terry, I've seen you work plenty, and you're pretty unflappable, and maybe to you too, Belinda. But like, what do you attribute that to?
Well, first of all, I want to go back and say something. I love the software, and I want to go back to the previous point. Most couples therapists have not had training in couples therapy.
Mm-hmm.
That's the open secret in the field. Most couples therapists are individual therapists who go, okay, I'll see a couple. Mm-hmm. And then they get overwhelmed. Well, you're overwhelmed because you have no idea what you're doing. I'm sorry, but over and over again, the people who come and train in RLT go, oh my God, I was so overwhelmed every time I said, here's a map, do this, and then this, and then this. So software is great. What I really want is I want people to learn how to assess what's going on and have a map about what to do about it. People are overwhelmed because they just haven't had decent training in how to do it. Yeah. I just want to make that point.
But when you're with a couple or an individual and you get triggered, I think it's really helpful to say, I'm going to be quiet for a moment. I'm going to recalibrate, and that they're watching my doing it.
Oh, you're modeling.
And then feel, yes, they feel safer that it can be done. Because I tell my clients, I am so whacked out on the inside and have many years that to do that was Herculean. And what the therapy was that got me there. I love doing the deeper work with inside a couple. But I also know some of what the trauma has done is make it really difficult to trust that you can share it with anybody other than an expert. And I felt that way. I felt that I've been in therapy since I've been 18, since I went off to college. And I would say only in my 40s did I start feeling free of the out of control adaptive child. It still caused trouble, but I wasn't out of control. I mean, I wasn't overwhelmed by the whoosh. And I could show that to clients. And it's wonderful in a couple if you have one person in that whoosh and is really feeling, I gotta leave. I can't be here with you. You're disgusting. To help them take a time out, the other partner watching, they leave for 10 minutes and they come back, and I can help them through the process of re-regulating. And then the partner sees their husband or wife being able to do this without having to make the husband or wife change.
So I think that implicit in every time Belinda opens her mouth and speaks, it is, and this is true of all RLT therapists. Yes, she's had a ton of training. Yes, she's had years of experience. Her feet are grounded in her own recovery process. And in RLT, we're not above you. We're not experts. We're not below you. We're not facilitating. We're more like 12-step sponsors. We've been through it. So if I'm going to teach you about self-regulation and you're going to teach you about my journey of self-regulation and speak from that, I do want to say, in terms of getting triggered because other people are being triggered, all RLT therapists have two things in place. It's an important part of your training. One is good boundaries. They're your feelings that are my feeling. Yeah. And in analytic literature, they talk about the difference between empathy and identification. I can feel your feelings. They resonate, but they're still your feelings and not my feelings. So that helps a lot, having boundaries. And the other, which I think is even more important, is detachment from outcome.
As a therapist.
Sentence by sentence. This is a profound spiritual principle in our work. It's not my life, it's your life. It's not my journey, it's your journey. I will not tell you what to do. I will tell you what I see, and what I see as the probable consequences of going this way or that way. What you choose to do with it, brother, that's up to you. And that's one, we're famous for being so brutally honest with our clients and getting away with it. So, and one of the reasons why people listen to us is because there isn't a whiff of agenda.
Or going one up.
Well, let me do the first, if I may. Stephen Porges says, for a neural pathway to open up, you have to feel safe. And safety is two things. No judgment, you're not going one up, and no agenda, you're not controlling them. And so I will lean into you and go, Zach, here's what I see. You're about to lose your marriage, and your kids are going to hate your guts if you keep going this way. Here's why. Let's talk about your relationship with your dad. Are you thrilled with how that goes? Is this what you want about? I'm like, right in your face. But are you going to change or not? I don't care. That's up to you. It's your life. And when people get, quote unquote, triggered as therapists, I'm going to tell you, somebody who's been supervising 9 out of 10 times is because they've been pulled into an agenda. I've got
fixing them.
I've got to save these kids. I've got to save marriage. And there's an extraordinary spiritual freedom that, maybe you guys should stay married and maybe not. We do a lot of shrugging. I don't know. This is what I see. So
I
that
can
helps
see why
us
this resonates so much with you, Zach. I can see
totally.
It. Yeah.
Well, it's really 12-step. One of our great mentors was P.M. Melody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And her work, no matter getting sober from alcohol, from love addiction,
sex addiction, food addiction, you name it. She was addicted to it.
Wow.
The other piece, I don't know if you see this about yourself. I don't think I've ever even asked you.
Uh-oh.
As survivors of really severe trauma, from a very early age, we become systemic. We look at the whole picture, not just the individual. We're looking at how am I going to duck and dive from all of this? Because if one doesn't come after me, the other will. And so you have to look at the impact. And so we already came into the training with this approach of systems thinking. And many individual therapists don't do that. They haven't been trained in it, and they haven't recovered that way. They see their recovery as all being internal and the introjects and changing your relationship to that. I think that's important also. But I think it's easier to do that if you have this bigger picture you're holding on to. And it's just not getting to one person to change them or change yourself.
Yeah, my language. Go ahead, Zach.
Well, it begs a question for me that kind of attached to what we were talking about earlier. And I don't know if I've ever asked this question in this way, but given the work that you're doing now, both with each other and in your practices and in your world, is there a measure of gratitude for your trauma? I mean,
Yeah, I know. I mean, yes and no. I mean, it stole my life.
Yeah.
It took the first 18 years, I was in shock. And then when I got out of my home was the first time I started to feel the impact of it in such a violent way internally that I couldn't live my life on the planet. And it forced me to have to get some help. And I was married before. I was in Berkeley. I was in a lot of serial relationships. So in my recovery, I wasn't looking for strategies about how to change my family members. I was looking for ways of being able to be in their company because I choose to, not that they're making me. I had that in me, that I wasn't going to be disrespectful or cut off my family. Even there was a lot of reason to do that because it was my own value system. If I wanted, when they died and they're both dead, I wanted to be able to put my head on the pillow at night after they died and say, I behaved within my value system and I did the best I could with them. And I didn't have guilt. I mean, I called my mother every week, but I learned to stay on the phone only 5 minutes. Terry helped me. Yeah. I'd always go home and stay in the family hall. When we were married and had a child, my mother put us in her bed, which was, oh my God, and she slept on the couch out in the living room. with a radio on her chest.
It took me, the outsider, to go, Belinda, we're staying in a hotel. Here's the reason why we're not staying at your mother's. You go crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your mother. Like, let's get started. But I love to tell, Jack, from my teaching, I love to tell Belinda's story. So here's a Belinda story. Her mother, with that sort of borderline personality, supernatural, whatever, psychic ability, whenever Belinda and I would go away on vacation, even if we hid it from her, she had no idea what we were doing. Every time we went on vacation, Belinda would get a call that her mother was in intensive care in Los Angeles, and she'd have to leave and go. This happened like 2 or 3. On the third time, this is my darling. On the third time, Belinda walks into her, this is the systemic therapist, walks into her mother's hotel room, ICU.
It was like a hotel.
She'd go, and her mother would be there in a black peignoir. But she walked in, her mother was fine as can be in intensive care. And she says, Ma, you look okay. Give me your purse. I want your credit card. And she said, Ma, I'm so anxious about your health. The only thing I can think to do to feel better is shop. I'll be back around 5. She'd come back at 5 with
so many bags.
20 bags full of shopping. And she said, Ma, here's your credit card. I just spent X thousands of dollars. And every day you're here in the hospital, I'm going to go shopping. Her mother was out of the hospital that afternoon, and this never repeated again. It was a totally successful intervention. So we've learned to manage. But I want to go back to this. So many of us have read that incredible book, The Drama of the Gifted Child, Alice Miller. Let me remind you, the gift of the gifted child is EQ, being able to read people and circumstance. And what Alice Miller says is, if you're the child of a narcissistic parent, an abusive parent, you damn well better develop EQ, or, there'll be hell to pay. You learn how to regulate those people because your life depends upon it. And then that becomes a gift. Many of us become therapists.
But then the gift turns to trouble when you don't allow yourself to see that you've internalized both parts of their behavior. The part that they behaved badly, we weren't going to do. But the part that was successful in damaging us, the real impact of that trauma, we began acting out in our own realities because we knew it was successful. And sometimes if you're only thinking individually, you don't look at the perpetrator in yourself. You only look at the victim. But the biggest problem isn't the victim, it's the perpetrator. And we all have that, even if we don't want to believe it.
And I think that's one of the great distinguishing characteristics of the work we do of RLT. We don't just look at shame and helping people come up from one down. We look just as much at grandiosity and helping people come down from the one up. And as a field, psychotherapy has virtually ignored that. There's now a big deal about narcissistic abuse, and all you women with your narcissistic men, you better leave them because they're untreatable. Nonsense. RLT, we treat these guys breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but you have to know how to do it. And as a field, we do not lean in and deal with grandiosity. We protect it. And that's not psychology, that's patriarchy. And I think one of our contributions was, and this is different, for example, from IFS. The adaptive child is not just a protector in the group around the wounded child. The adaptive child is also what you may have taken into modeling. And that's really important to understand grandiosity. When my father was beating me, on the receiving end of his abuse, I was disempowered, made to feel small and worthless, and that led to shame. But he was also modeling for me. He was telling me, when you're growing up and you're a man and you get pissed off, this is what that looks like, and it's perfectly normal. And as a field, we have not dealt with those aspects. Social psychology looks at identification and modeling, but therapy does not. And
we have a hesitancy to look at the parts of ourselves that can be as troubling, as destructive as what happened in our family. It might come out in different context and different behavior. Like, I have to work this part with all the sex addicts I work with. I have a really good track record of getting sex addicts sober because I work with this part.
Yeah, as a field, we have to not, everybody's a victim. Trauma. Well, where's all this trauma coming from? Are we all hitting ourselves over the head with hammers? I mean, somebody's victimizing us. We have to deal with the victimizing parts of us and not just the traumatized parts of us.
Yeah.
And we haven't effectively done that.
I want to respect our time. We have, I'll talk to you as long as you want, but like in terms of the time that we committed to, we have about an hour. But so then let me ask you this question. First time I met you, Terry, was actually in a bookstore here in Seattle, and you had just published How Do I Get Through to You? And I came up and I was like, here, will you sign my book? And it was, I don't want to talk about it. And what you said to me was, I wish you'd brought the other book. And I was like, damn, that was harsh. And I told Belinda that story, and she said, yeah, Terry used to be a pretty hard guy. Like, he was a pretty harsh dude. So that was 25 years ago. Like, if we were just thinking about kind of where you're at now, and if you were, let's say you were in this kind of harsher, more grandiose space 25 years ago, what do you attribute to coming kind of down to now, to the space that the two of you are in now?
Well, me. I mean,
okay. I love it. I love it.
I do
too. That Terry was, and still is, was so attractive. You remember 25 years ago?
Yeah. Well, 25 years ago, you were my age. That's the part that's blowing my mind right now. I'm like, oh, there's hope for me yet.
He was gorgeous. He's brilliant. He's articulate, and he's successful. That's a bad combination.
Yeah.
Yet to try the successful part with trying to help him understand the impact of that narcissistic part. And he didn't want to hear it. Yeah.
Well, we really got 3 minutes. Okay, go ahead.
That took a courage in me to say, you can't live with him if this doesn't change. It's just not about me. It's about this that can look so attractive to the world, but has a part that is so destructive to himself and others. And he started listening because he was having consequences out in the world. It wasn't just with me. I wasn't enough consequence. But when you started having problems with your trainees or with colleagues, you knew that if you wanted to continue, you'd have to do something different. And then you had a willingness to ask me, do I do this? And I would say, yep.
I was raised by a powerful, abusive man, and I would say that abusive power, particularly male abusive power, now I would say white male abusive power, been one of the great Zen koans of life. Trying to figure out what right relationship to power, which I would now say Rianne Eisler, power with, not power over. But it's taken me 40 years to get from power over to power with. Linda's rage was so blatant and overt that it wasn't hard for both of us to say, clean that up or we can't go on. But my grandiosity, lack of attention, or obsession with my career entitlement. It had a lot to do with her rage. And that goes back to what we were saying before. Everybody I see is an essentialist. My wife just is this way. And why was Belinda enraged? Oh, because she's a rager. She grew up in a raging family, and that's who she is. It's a systemic perspective that heals us, that we as therapists can bring. Yeah, Belinda was a rager. I was leaving her alone with 2 difficult kids while I was off on the road for weeks at a time.
You had to worry.
She was telling me I'm in over my head. I'm too traumatized and too triggered to handle this alone. You've got to come back. And I didn't want to hear it. And they, I have a saying now, an angry woman is generally a woman who doesn't feel heard. And so it was easy to say, this marriage is over unless you do something about your rage. It was a lot harder to say, let me look at the ways much more subtle than you're yelling and screaming that I'm setting you up to be in rage. But what joins both Belinda and me is that we're seekers. This is our version of gratitude. Other people can just go on along and live in their adaptive child and do okay. But we grew up in such dire circumstances that we either had to reconfigure ourselves, but from the cellular level up, or we weren't going to make it as a marriage or even to live.
For parents, we wouldn't be able to have managed all that rage. I don't think maybe 1 or 2 times we both got so angry at the kids.
Yeah, mostly we spared them. But we had to learn how to be different than our defaults, or we were going to go under. And that's what joins us. When he said to a friend of ours, the 2 of you are joined in your trauma. And we both almost instantaneously together said, no, we're joined in our recovery.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Well, listen, you guys have been amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to study with you and to have known you, Belinda, and glad that you guys came on. And just really appreciate you offering us your insight into your relationship and to your work.
Nice meeting both of you again.
Thank you. Nice to meet you too.
And we'll see you somewhere.
Okay, so that's Terry and Belinda Real. I got to meet Belinda in Costa Rica in about a year ago, and she is, as you just noticed, a delight. I was really glad to be able to connect with her and with Terry and learn a little bit more about what makes them tick. You can find uncut, unedited episodes of these interviews at our Patreon page. You just go to patreon.com/marriagetherapyradio. There are also additional interviews with Laura and I talking to each other and our own spouses. So if that's appealing to you, please go and support Marriage Therapy Radio behind the scenes at Patreon. Additionally, if you are interested in relational life therapy, particularly as a clinician, I want to invite you to join the RLT conference, which is going to be this April of 2025 in Orlando, Florida. And a little bit of a shameless plug, I will be there and I will be one of the breakout presenters. I'm really excited to get down there and to be with some of my mentors and heroes in the RLT world. I'm also bringing Rebecca, so we're going to go to the parks or something, probably hit Disney World or whatever. But mostly are going to be there just to network and continue to do the very good work of relational life therapy. So thanks again for joining. I hope that you enjoyed the interview. We have one more coming up, and So I Married an Relationship Expert, and I hope you'll check it out. See you next time.